everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Bad Bitch podcast. We are thrilled to have you here for yet another episode where you can expect some pop culture, some what's been going on in our lives, but also some practical knowledge that you can apply to your own life to help you move forward. I'm Julia.
I'm Emily.
And we are the Bad Bitches of the Bad Bitch podcast. So this week we're sponsored by the lovely Rugged Supplements. So Rugged is a company that has been set up by a nutritionist of over 15 years experience. They have a lot of practical experience in actually working out and serving customers with the nutritional systems at work, but more recently they've turned their attention to providing supplements and products which help everyday people just build really good everyday habits in an easy way, because let's face it, we know what we need to do, but sometimes we just need a little bit of help and the smoothest transition from those habits that perhaps don't serve us into the habits that make us feel good and help us live our feel better and more energized to go about our day. So Rugged only specialise in evidence-backed and science-based products that work. It's things like creatine and collagen, all the things that are really important and key to our well-being. As you well know, being our qualified nutritionist also here, and like I can testimony, I can really back up the fact that the creatine just really helps me on a daily basis. There's a lot of noise around it being just for the bros and for the gym guys, but really just as a woman, and there's some, we can link this in the show notes, there's some real good strong evidence like based studies that show how important creatine is to women and their well-being and their mental well-being, more importantly, and especially if they're sleep deprived, how creatine just sort of helps smooth that period. And it's just amazing for our cognitive function. And then obviously collagen is very important for our lovely joints, our skin, our hair, our nails, all the things we love.
I mean, we are both fans of Rugged and fans of creatine.
Yes.
And I would say one of the big differences I found when I started using it regularly, just like one scoop every day, was having more consistent energy through the day, so more stable energy. And like you said, that mental focus that I'd feel sharp in the morning, but maybe in the afternoon less sharp, but when I have the creatine, I don't.
For sure.
So we're huge advocates. As you said, it's not just if you want to muscle up in the gym, it's actually really beneficial from an energy perspective. And if you don't like taking a powder and water, Rugged makes the most amazing creatine gummies that actually taste really good. It's like having a blueberry jelly baby. And a lot of these things taste awful, but they actually taste lovely.
They
Big
really
fan.
do.
So really recommend.
Exactly. But don't pop them like sweets. Because when I speak to the when I speak to the founder and I'm like, how many gummies can I have? And he's like, they're not sweet. Or no, I'll say, how many sweets can I have? I won't even say how many gummies. I'm like, how many sweets can I have?
But that's how good they taste, because they, often things are flavoured, and you kind of tolerate the flavour because you know it's good for you, but you wouldn't choose to drink that particular shake or have that particular product if it wasn't good for you. But these actually taste good enough, you would just eat them anyway.
Exactly. And also, even if you're having the creatine powder, you can put it in juice, you can put it even in your tea, you can put it in whatever you want. You can't taste it. And you can make, I call it my morning cocktail, so I'll actually have the collagen powder, the creatine, I'll put in some clear whey protein. You can even have it with squash or juice, and you just mix it in, and then it's just a really lovely way to start the day. And like you say, it's like, just helps ease that, it smooths out the bumps and helps you just feel more calm and more mentally clear. That is the main reason I take it throughout the day, aside from the benefits that are associated with working out in the gym of creatine. But obviously, if you're embarking on taking on a new supplement or a new diet, as always, consult a medical professional. But we are really proud to be sponsored by Rugged this week and to support an amazing business.
We are. So let's get into the episode. What have you been up to this week?
This week I've had I was approached by a financial institution to talk about about how to, similar you did last time with resilience, but they're talking about, they wanted me to deliver some content for them on how to go from like firefighting to forward thinking.
Oh, that's brilliant.
It was really exciting, and how to just sort of like learn to manage that primitive brain, logical brain dialogue, and how we can step out from that constant always being in the fire, and we're always in that reactive state, to becoming into a better place where we can almost anticipate what's coming down the road, we can plan better for it, and just really have a nicer time in life and at work, rather than just feeling like the whole building and everything is on fire. And it was a privilege to deliver it for them. So they got a nice presentation, they got a brain science explanation, and they got an audio for their staff to listen to when they wanted.
Oh, that's so good. Explain for people who haven't been your clients, what are the audios that you give people and how do they use them?
So the audios are something that all my clients will get. Sometimes if they request it, and I'm working with them, we can work to put together a bespoke one. But all my clients, as soon as they start working with me, they will get a lovely, just a relaxing audio to put on when they go to sleep. The idea is really that they don't ever get to the end. They just they put it on when they get into bed, and not only does it help them get used to the sound of my voice and also reassure them that nothing bad is going to happen when they're relaxing, and I can't control their mind and take over their bodies and make them do weird and crazy shit.
Wouldn't it be fun if you could?
Yeah. Unethical in a therapeutic setting, but probably quite fun. And then we could get into like the whole world of conspiracy about the CIA doing mind control experiments.
That's for another podcast.
For another series.
Not even the Bad Bitch podcast.
Exactly.
It's another podcast.
But yes, so it's like having the audio just gets people used to my voice, helps them, and it really just helps them start to relax and start to take the edge off that anxiety, because it's just a nice sort of like gateway into better sleep. And it just really is like, it's, without getting too much into it, it's like acting like a pre-filtering of our brain, in terms of, because our brain does this amazing self-cleaning process when we sleep, and when we do the relaxation and the trance, it's not the same, but it's kind of like we're pre-filtering stuff to get ready to start doing the self-cleaning process.
So if anyone's suffering from anxiety and doing a lot of that kind of fight or flight, really thinking about how to have some good sleep practices, and maybe
100%.
Listening to some kind of audio because it's not just the number of hours you sleep, like the quality and what your brain's doing can be massively impacted by what you do. So listening to one of your audios rather than watching a crime drama or a documentary about serial killers before bed, that's going to increase the amount of brain cleaning and the quality of sleep and reduce your stress levels.
It's going to help you just prepare for a much better quality sleep, like you say. Yeah.
Fantastic. Now, obviously,
what's going on in your week?
Well, it's been an interesting week. Obviously, lots of coaching, a couple of really interesting things. One of them, which I'm actually going to talk about in today's episode, because today's episode is on procrastination. But I finally got round to tiling and panelling my bathroom.
Winning.
Now,
I do feel like we need to do a high five.
Now, we'll talk about it in procrastination, but one of the things I'm doing with this house is I'm not paying for everything to be done by other people. There's a lot I'm doing myself. And some people have asked me why. Why would you do that to yourself? But one of the ways we really build our confidence and our resilience is by regularly taking on and doing things we don't know that we can do. And I had never tiled a backsplash before, and I didn't know that I could do it. And I will actually be honest, I was pretty convinced I was going to mess it up. We're going to talk about what happened a bit later, but I didn't mess it up. So I was really proud of myself, and I've done some green paneling. I'd also never done paneling, dark green. It looks amazing. So really proud of myself for that. Saw some clients, and then had a great end to the week by I was chairing a panel at an event that was all about violence against women and girls and domestic abuse and what we can do about it. Because it is a real problem in this country. I mean, in the UK, every 3 days, 2 women are killed by a partner, and I worked for 6 years. I was on the board of a domestic abuse charity called the Her Centre in Greenwich, and we were working with, just in our borough, we worked with 900 women a year. And we'll link to the charity in the show notes, because all around the country there are these amazing charities helping victims of domestic abuse, including young women, very young women, and they're not funded by the government. And there's all this amazing work. So it was a really interesting panel. And we were talking about what can be done to reduce this and help women. And it was there was, I would say it was like a panel of bad bitches, to be honest. My co-chair, Kimberly Harmer, is an amazing activist, and she did a fantastic and moving talk. But also one of the women on the panel was Helen Grant, MP, OBE. So she's MP for Maidstone and Malling, and she is completely a bad bitch.
Yeah, she is, for sure. I said that to you before we started, didn't I?
Yeah, absolutely is. And she was a lawyer, she was a family lawyer, so she's helped a lot of women in these situations, and now she's an MP. And she also spoke and spoke really brilliantly about this topic. And one of the things she said that really struck me, and that's why I wanted to bring it up today, was that one of the ways that we can help protect women and young girls is by building their confidence and by empowering them and helping them learn to set boundaries, recognise their own needs, stand up for them. And basically I thought that's like being a bad bitch, basically. Definitely. And it made me even more convinced that as a society we do need to empower women, build their confidence, and help them recognise when a relationship isn't healthy. And there are lots of charities like Little Fish Theatre doing great work in schools on this as well. But I do worry a little bit, coming back to our kind of pop culture aspect, that some of the reality television that people see shows quite dramatic, unhealthy relationships. Now I haven't seen Love Island because I haven't seen anything, but my impression when people talk about it is it's very dramatic and there are some quite unhealthy behaviours happening. And I just think maybe we're showing that too much, and women need to really role model for younger women that a healthy relationship should be calm, there shouldn't be lots of drama.
Yes.
There can be conflict, but you can resolve it, and that it's okay to advocate for yourself and say what your needs are and have them met. And if someone is really giving you a hard time because you want to take care of yourself, that isn't a sign that you're being selfish. That's a sign that you probably should be out of that relationship.
Definitely.
So she was fantastic. Helen was fantastic, but it just made me think this is so important, and she's absolutely right. As well as all the great work that the Kent Crime Commission is doing and other organisations are doing, just the basic. If you're a parent to girls, if you're a teacher with girls, really building their confidence and self-esteem and helping them understand healthy boundaries is one of the best protections against this.
I love that. And I think it's also a really good point, because I know we covered it in like the why we started the podcast, but it's just to hark back to the fact that building your confidence and your self-assurance in terms of being a bad bitch, I know we're both here wearing high heels and you've got the lipstick on, but that is not what being a bad bitch is. Living a life that's authentic to you.
Yes.
And creating a life that you want. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to wear the lipstick and the heels. It might be that you're barefoot on a beach with like 5 babies, or it's whatever. A bad bitch is whatever the definition of a bad bitch is, making a life that you define as bad bitch life.
Yeah, and that you love.
Yeah.
And that genuinely makes you feel good.
100%.
And it's built on a solid foundation of true inner confidence.
Yes.
Because if you build a life but you don't do that first work to build your inner confidence, it's like building your house on sand, and you're very vulnerable. But if you build that true inner confidence, then when things get shaky and the earthquake comes, your house is still standing.
Yes.
So that is totally what we're about. Can I completely shift gears now?
Absolutely.
And ask you, did you go and see Wuthering Heights?
I did go and see Wuthering Heights.
I feel like we have to come back to it because we spoke about it in the first podcast.
We do.
And I haven't seen it, of course.
Yes, I mean, if you want to
I need your evaluation.
If you want to talk about unhealthy relationships.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Really?
Wow. Well,
tell me.
I described it to my friend as horny misery,
Oh.
as like the film, but let's put that aside. And there's obviously been a lot of like divisive opinion. You've had the book purists that have gone and seen the film, and some people come out of it and like Emily Bronte would have loved it. Other people are like, this is like the worst film, like, and it's because it's a complete departure from the book. And as I mentioned in the first episode, Emerald Fennell is on record as saying it's like her version of her 14-year-old self interpretation of the book. A perhaps very interesting interpretation, but was it aesthetically beautiful and really visually stunning and pleasing? It absolutely was. I mean, there were parts like Margot Robbie was really fantastic in her role. She had the costumes. There's this one bit where she's walking on the moor. towards the church in a wedding dress, and like as a tourist, and as I said the last time, just in terms of a visually aesthetically pleasing, I did think I was going to die of joy because it was so beautiful. And there were scenes that obviously, like her source material, where it may not have necessarily been true to the book, she'd reference like there were very key scenes of like Gone with the Wind, and it was very highly stylized sets, and they built all the sets. It wasn't any of the like the creation, like the CGI. All the sets were built. The dynamic between Jacob Elordi and Margot Robbie, honestly, I think they probably blew their load on the press tour, and everyone believed, like, in
How do you mean?
of like they create this, they've had this real chemistry on the press tour. Did it replicate in real life, in the film, in real life? Clearly it's working in real life on the press tour.
But Margot's married, isn't she?
She is, but on screen it is, it was an interesting dynamic between the two. I did at points find myself watching the film thinking, more than enjoying like it as a moment by moment unfolding, my primitive brain was trying to forecast where the next bit was coming that was going to gross me out.
Oh, so was it a bit unpleasant?
There were bits of it, yeah, but it was overall, it was I don't know if it's enjoyable is the right word. It was, yeah. Did you ever see The Revenant?
Yes. No, I did enjoy that though.
I felt like I had been inside the bear myself the whole time. It was great. So I wouldn't say it was an enjoyable film, but I was glad I went to see it, and I enjoyed her interpretation of it, you know?
Well, that is something. And, you know, you're not going to love every movie you go and see. One of my challenges, though, is I find it hard to watch a movie where the characters aren't likeable and I end up not rooting for anyone. Were the characters likeable?
In a short word, no.
So it wasn't for me.
Although it's like the guy that that Kathy marries in Wuthering Heights, they made him a very, yes, he was fairly beige, but he was just like a genuine, like there were some real moments where you were like, you are a likeable, really nice guy. Does it play into that, what we were saying about in terms of how like the media and that sort of like dramatise like that real all-consuming toxic relationship? Yes, there is elements of that in the film, prioritising that over like more stable connections. So yes, there was that to it, but overall it's just another interpretation, you know, and who are we to say to like Emerald Fennell that her interpretation is wrong, you know?
Well, and I think one of the great things about the arts is they are there to provoke us to think.
Exactly.
So if something's provocative, that is helpful. I think you raised a really interesting point there, where you're kind of describing two people, like there's the romantic character and then the beige character. But again, that's where I think sometimes we need to think differently about romance, because you can have great passion, but actually for a long-term relationship, you need stability.
Definitely.
And maybe people undervalue that because, you know, sometimes when relationships are very passionate, by their nature, they're also not stable.
Exactly. Yes. And I see, and we see that play out in a lot of movies. I know you and I have talked about this before. We see it in the relationship between Jack and Rose in Titanic. We see it almost in The Notebook. It's like the flyboy is, or where you've got that real like emotion. It's almost like if you're not having that real emotional, like all-consuming, can't live without you connection, then it's not a worthy connection. But that's not really true.
No. I think as you get older, you start to change your perspective on that, though.
For sure.
Shall we get stuck into today's topic?
Let's do it.
So today we're going to talk about procrastination. And I was really keen that we talk about this because it's something that so many of my clients and people I know, including myself, struggle with. 100%. We all, in lots of ways, know what we need to do to achieve our goals, but we procrastinate. So we feel like we're procrastinating. So today we're going to talk about why we procrastinate and techniques to help address it. So let's start, because you're the brain science expert. Let's start with, why does the brain procrastinate, or give us the messages that make us procrastinate?
So there's a couple of things going on here. Our brain first of all is quite lazy. It likes what it knows. It doesn't like using like unnecessarily energy. It doesn't want like using energy, and so therefore, if it perceives like having to do like a task that's sort of like slightly outside our comfort zone, our primitive brain especially wants us to be safe, but safe and happy are not the same thing. It just wants you to kind of trundle along in its own little way, not disrupting the status quo, and literally just because it likes what it knows, and it doesn't have to flag any kind of like different events that might be like threats to our survival. So it just likes to just sort of trundle along, and then we can get into that space as well with our brain where it's like we start to think, because we've got a great capacity in our brain for imagination, visualization, and there's very little difference between when we imagine something or we do it in real life. Our brain chemically doesn't, there's very little difference. And so we will start to think about that task, oh, we've got to do that, and our primitive brain will keep reminding us, and because we get kind of in that space where we get overwhelmed because we think it's always going to be more complex than it's going to be. You know, we tend to get into that space where we're overthinking it. It becomes quite emotional. Well, it's exhausting if we keep thinking about all the things. I feel like please do share your input with procrastination. It's if we've got a lot on, and the more things that come, and the more overwhelmed we feel, the more that procrastination comes in, and the more you sort of want to sort of step back and not engage with anything.
Yes, yeah. I think we get that paralysis from overwhelm. I do think we procrastinate more on the things that are new or just bigger, take up more time and energy. So that's why we'll talk later about distraction, but that's why I think we might just start fiddling with our to-do list or our email or tidying something, because our brain knows how to do that.
We're in the comfort zone.
In the comfort zone. So we procrastinate against things that are big and new. But I do also think that this is maybe getting worse because we're not very clear on when we're being productive and when we're relaxing. And we've got this kind of toxic productivity where we feel like every second of the day we should be productive. And that's actually unnatural. So maybe part of the reasons we're procrastinating is our brain just wants us to stop and have a break. And actually, if you dial down the to-do list or give yourself a very clear amount of time to do something in, and we'll come to strategies later, but then you also have proper downtime, I don't think your brain rebels against the to-do list as much as if you're just constantly beating yourself up saying I should do more, and then you're starting a little war in your head about it.
Exactly. And then that really does gather legs and grow momentum, because you'll start going, well, I'm not where I need to be in life, I should be further ahead, I've not done this thing, I'm really unhappy, I want to change this thing, but also this thing. And then we go down what I call into the doom whirlpool, where actually it's like the task is very small, but we've let our primitive brain sort of start running the show. But I do feel like that, like you said about people, how they want a life hack every area of their life. It's like, and I go in the sauna and there's people in there and they're drinking their water and they're reading their book at the time, their self-help book, and they're checking their watch. How long have I done? How much longer can I stand in the heat? And I'm like, okay, bro, like literally, this is not the point of the sauna. It's literally to just like have a nice time and just to sort of like have that deregulations, like that decompression space, you know. But it's like we're not having those clear boundaries. We're watching TV, we're scrolling on the phones, we're texting our friends at the same time. There doesn't seem to be many tasks that we're like truly present in now.
No, I totally agree. And in fact, there was some phenomenon that was talked about recently about double screening, and I thought, what does that mean? And they said, well, it's when you're doing one thing on one screen and another thing on another screen at the same time. And I was at an event, so I just happened to ask the people who was listening to me talk. I said, okay, well, does anyone do that? Because I don't. And then almost all the hands went up in the room, and a lot of people said they can't watch television without also doing something on their phone or their laptop at the same time, which blew my mind.
Because even like I find, just because you know it doesn't mean you are it, because I will find like times where I'm like, I'm trying to be on, like, even if I'm out, I'm like, I wish I had another laptop so I could have something playing and watching, and I can work on my laptop and do emails and etc. But it's like how far we've got sucked into this, like we have to be productive, but as humans that's not yes, we need to have purpose. Yes, we need to feel like we're making progress, and that's very important for our well-being mentally and physically. But to be productive all the time and to get into that like toxic culture is just not, it's counterproductive.
And it's not actually healthy.
No.
So one of the reasons we're potentially procrastinating is we're overloading ourselves and our to-do list and our expectations. Can you talk a little bit about what happens in someone's brain, like the messaging, like the internal dialogue that happens when people start procrastinating? So maybe their first thought, let's start with me, and I promise this whole podcast won't be about my house, but it's very relevant.
It's good, it's a good relevant example.
It's a very relevant example because I have, talk about eating the elephant, I have so much to do here. And so I might think I need to paint that wall. That's the first thought is you think about the thing you need to do, but then what tends to happen in someone's brain that then means they don't do it?
Well, the painting the wall is, especially if you feel emotionally depleted and you already feel quite like on edge or just like quite down with the weather that keeps going on as we keep talking about. But it's like, I mean, that might look like something along the lines of, you're like, I've got to paint the wall, right? Have I got the right paint? Where's the paint? I've got to go and get the paint. Where's the paintbrushes? Now I've got to find the tray. Is the tray clean? And then your brain will start trying to figure out all the little steps it needs to do in order for you to actually get to do the task. So it becomes, when we're thinking about it in that much detail, it becomes more overwhelming and our brain is less likely to want to start because it's like a lot of expenditure of energy to actually do the tasks now.
So we're amplifying it.
100%.
We're doing this whole internal narrative that makes it seem bigger and more stressful. And I know I sometimes do it with going running, where there's a lot of thought about the weather and right now about how muddy it's going to be and how hard it's going to be.
And then I've got to clean my shoes. Right. And I'm going to do the washing when I come back.
So if you listen to that narrative, you definitely wouldn't want to go and do the thing.
Yeah.
What's your recommended strategy for managing that internal dialogue?
Also, I think as well, it's just important to flag about how your brain can show up and it will be like, to do this thing, it means I've got to do this, and I've got to going to the gym as well, perfect example, got to find my gear, got to find my trainers, got to drive there, got to do a workout, there's going to be loads of people.
Yeah, I can't get on my machine. Yeah.
It's going to be so busy, it's not the right time, the sun's not at like 45 degrees, you know. And I know a joke, but that is what our brain will do. It will kind of like flag all the things. It can also show up in a lot more clear messaging. If it's not doing the over dramatization of all the steps, it can be like as simple as like, oh, I'm too tired, or I can't be bothered. I am too tired. Even sometimes like it can make you feel like, even when you like that, when you're on the precipice of starting a task, your brain, if it's unfamiliar, it can feel quite ragey and you can just feel like a rage boil up inside you.
You're angry at having to do the task.
You're just it's like the culmination just before you start of all that, I can't do it, or it's quite overwhelming, and it's just like, it just feels like that everything sort of bubbles to the surface. All that feelings of I'm too tired, I'm kind of forcing myself to do it. There's a lot more to this. There's a lot more to this perceived in our brains. Imagination, there's a lot more to it than there really is in reality, but it's like so it can show up in a couple of different ways. Could you just remind me what the question was?
No, well, you've kind of answered it, but part of it is when you recognize that, or when your brain starts going down that path, what can you do to shift that internal narrative? Before we're going to talk about obviously the practical side of how you get yourself to start taking action. Yes. But what can you do mentally to start shifting that thought process?
So first of all, just recognise how it shows up for you. Is it I'm too tired? Is it the rage? Is it the I'm really just like over planning all the paths to how all the things I need to do? And then it's thinking, there's a really, having a little like life jacket, I say to my client, have a little sort of like go-to sentence or a go-to thought, an affirmation. I like it like as a little, I call it the life jacket. Have a
little mental hug.
Exactly, like the brain hug. Have a little sort of statement that you can put on to just remind yourself. It's like, acknowledge that this is coming up and just be like, okay, I hear you. It can be as simple as that. It doesn't have to be like, thank you for showing up, it means so much to me. No, it can literally be, okay, I hear you, bro, that's fine, I can hear you. And then the next stage, I like something that works for me is like I have this little visual, and I can link it in the show notes. There's an amazing Instagram account called Band-Aid for the Heart, and it shows very clearly, because our brain loves a visual, it's like the mental weight of thinking about a task, and it's like a bar chart that's like really high compared to the mental like expenditure we have to do to actually do the task, which is tiny. And it just, for me, it just clearly it reminds me, it's like the going back and forth. And given that our brains are quite lazy, it hasn't worked it out that the going back and forth and the making us feel bad is so much more labor intensive than actually just the getting down to it.
So just spotting that you're wasting energy thinking about it, and actually it will be less to do it. We're going to talk in a second about how we get into that. I want to share a strategy I have that's a bit different to that, and I want to get your take on it, because you might say this, family, it's really unhealthy.
If it works for you.
Well, it does. So something that's very interesting to me is that in the Christian faith, people used to talk about the kind of the devil on their shoulder, and and the devil would be telling them to do things they shouldn't do. And obviously that was also part of when one of the ways to control people when you didn't have a police force was tell them that if you did the wrong thing, God would see you and you'd, die in the fires of hell. So it's obviously very specific, but the idea was that the inner voice that was telling you to cheat on your wife or steal something was the devil. And so that is a way of being able to disidentify from that voice. Now, I don't believe in the devil, and I also think the devil's very powerful, so you're also giving that voice a lot of power. But I do sometimes name that voice. And so, as you know, one of my favourite things if I'm struggling is to ask myself if I'm a winner or a quitter. But my internal voice that's sabotaging me, I call it my inner loser.
Love it.
Now, I would never call someone a loser, and I wouldn't call myself a loser. But when I hear the voice saying, don't go for the run, I go, oh, that's my inner loser. Why would I listen to that? And I'm deliberately making it quite weak. You could call it your inner slouch, your inner slacker, whatever, but I'm deliberately making it quite weak so it's not powerful. And then I say, well, that's what my inner loser's thinking. What would my inner winner think? If I was a winner, and I don't even think what the action is, I just think, what would the winner think? Well, the winner would think you can definitely go out for a run. Or sometimes if I am actually too tired, the winner would say, stop trying to make this a run, just go for a walk. But I go, what would the winner think? And then I think that thing, and then I take the action as the winner. So I find just like labeling it as something other than me, I can almost dismiss it. Does that make sense?
100%. And just like I said about like when it shows up, you can go, okay, I hear you, bro. It's like that next stage. It's like you're giving that kind of side of your personality that you know doesn't serve you. And like people even name it. I call mine Angelica. After like after the Rugrats, how like
how did I miss the Rugrats?
For those of you that remember the cartoon of Rugrats, it was like Angelica was like one of the siblings, and she was a right brat, and she was like really whiny. So it's like, is this like, if this comes up, I'm like, is this Angelica, or is it the Julia who is doing X, Y, and Z in the future? And it's a really good way of doing it, because you've created like a kind of like story and personality around it, and you've like told your brain that this is not the part that's empowering. But also what you're doing beautifully is you're using that wonderful capacity in your brain to visualize and play things forward in a positive way, and you're asking yourself from your logical brain perspective, what would what would best winner Emily do?
What does Emily the winner do? And it's amazing how effectively that works. You have to get good at first of all just listening to your internal dialogue and spotting that it's negative, but it doesn't take that long of practicing.
No, not at all.
To do it. Something else that I think is really helpful is making a list of your distraction activities. What are the activities you tend to do when you're procrastinating? When you're avoiding something else, what do you distract yourself with? Is it I put the TV on? Is it I scroll a particular website? Is it honestly, bizarrely, I clean?
Love it.
Often if I catch myself cleaning, I think, okay, what am I avoiding that I'm cleaning right now? Not when I should be cleaning, but I should be working. So I think also if you spot the things you tend to do to avoid something else, then when you're doing that thing, you can have an honesty moment with yourself and say, oh, I'm doing that thing because I'm avoiding this task that actually is important to do, and you can snap yourself back to it.
Definitely. And you will have like Winner Emily, or like
can we just call me that all the way
Winner
through the
Emily?
podcast
I love
now?
it. That's fine. I'm down with that. But it's like you will, when you're doing, you'll know when you've indulged in like the loser. But I don't think cleaning is loser behaviour. But when you're indulging in that, you will have like that really tiny voice, even if it's tiny, going, I don't know if this is the best use of your time, you know, and you that will come up. So you'll have an inkling of whether you're procrastinating or whether you should actually be cleaning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's being aware for yourself. Yeah. So let's move on to taking action, because one of the things you talk about in the Bad Bitch Reset that's so powerful is that take the first teeny tiny steps. Can you talk a little bit about what that looks like, and again, what can people do in their brain, what messaging, and what does the tiny action look like to get you moving?
So we will, when it comes to doing the task, the first little tiny step is obviously is usually a lot smaller than we think it is to get to the task. So, and it's also like kind of, if your brain is very like against energy expenditure and it's very against doing the task, but you kind of know you have to do it, it's like just sort of almost coaching yourself like you're talking to a 3-year-old, like coaching yourself through the next tiny task. So if you've got to paint a wall and your brain is really like, I don't want to do it, I'm not doing it, you can just be like, okay, I hear you. Okay, so we're not going to do that for now. We're just going to do the next tiny right thing. So we're just going to find the paintbrushes. We don't have to do any more than that. Okay, now that we've done that, let's just pour the paint in the tray. Okay, great. All right. We don't even have to paint the whole wall. We're just going to paint like a couple of strokes. And then what you find is when you get going, the resistance becomes less, and it's kind of like, you know, when like you were a child and it's like you're in the pool and it's like you can't swim, but then all of a sudden you're just like swimming.
Yes, yeah.
It's like that. You're like, oh,
I'm doing it. It's not that bad.
Exactly. Yes, it is exactly the same.
Absolutely. And I find if I'm doing, particularly if I've got a work task which is going to take a long time, like say I'm planning a new talk, I've got to spend at least 3 hours just structuring and designing it. And so in my head, then that's a big task. And I don't want to do it for 3 hours, and I won't. But for me, it would be just do 5 minutes, or get a pen and paper out. Because sometimes I'm even resistant to the laptop. Get a pen and paper out and just mind map what the talk will be for 10 minutes. Yeah. But then my brain's going. So now I'm just off to the races, and now I'm doing it. Exactly. But I couldn't get there by telling myself you're going to sit down and plan this entire talk. Exactly. It's like if it will feel overwhelming, some of the bigger things we have to do. So it's charting it back, and a lot of time that next step is a lot smaller. Like going to the gym, it may just be that you put your trainers by the front door and they stay there for another week or so. You know, it's like just doing the really tiny things. If you're trying to break habits like scrolling online, is the one that I usually use as an example. If you're scrolling for 3 hours a day, then try and do 2 hours and 50 minutes, because it needs to be so small your brain is on board with it. It's so also to think, how likely is it I can do this thing? You want your brain to basically be like, well, it's so flipping easy, why would I not do it? Why would I not? Yeah. Although I think another angle to it is motivation. So when I'm talking to my clients about procrastination or achieving their goals, I talk about a model I've come up with called OPM. Yes. And OPM is like 3 legs to a stool. So if you want to get something done, you need each of these 3 things or it won't happen. So the O stands for get organised. So like you said, if with my painting the wall, I'll share an example in a minute of the tiling, but with painting the wall, it is just get the paint and the paintbrush out. Yeah. The P stands for get productive. Yeah. So that is that, just take that first tiny step. But the M stands for motivation, because sometimes the task is so unpleasant. Like, I actually love painting, but it might be a task you really don't want to do. But you need to tap into your motivation about where does it get me, with a why. What's the big goal I'm getting to? And so, you know, coming back to kind of the bathroom tiling, first of all, I doubted I could do it, so I was a little bit scared about doing it. But I got organised where I just ordered a tile cutter, got the adhesive, the grout, the tiles, just got it. And to be honest, that sat in the bathroom, I'm going to say for about 4 weeks, to be honest about it, right? Sat there for 4 weeks. And then you've got to get productive. And for me, because I was a bit scared of it, I just said, just go and cut one tile and then leave the bathroom if it's too much.
Perfect.
But actually the tile went well, so I carried on. But the motivation aspect is I keep coming back to my Pinterest vision board of what my house will look like when it's all finished and all the images I've captured. And I use that to keep me motivated, when otherwise you could look at the whole project and just go, well, it's just too much, I'm not going to get there, and get easily overwhelmed. So if you're struggling, as well as obviously getting organised and taking that small action, just stop and think about, what's the bigger goal? How am I going to feel? How's my life going to be better when I achieve that thing overall? Delivering that talk that I did in Frankfurt, the vision I had was being in the room with everybody and having had a positive impact on them, and everyone having a really great conversation with each other. And there was a moment when I was actually doing the thing, and I'd put everyone in a breakout, and there was such amazing conversations I had to quite loudly interrupt them, and I realised the thing I'd visualised as my motivation was happening.
Love it. That's amazing. And yes, it's motivation, willpower, motivation, all these things will wane. So if you have a visual reminder that you can tap back into very easily, like that beautiful Pinterest vision for your house, it's like, just as a reminder to your brain, it sometimes needs that, this is why we're doing the thing. And primitive brain will be like, oh, okay. Fine.
Yeah, it's a bit like having a teenager.
100%. It is literally like that. And sometimes another little thing that's very good is putting on a time, like you said, 10-minute timer, Pomodoro timer, 20 minute, 25-minute timer. You can find it online if you just Google Pomodoro, and I can put a link in the show notes. I also really like, so in Top Gun Maverick,
Great reference to bring in at this point.
I know. He has this thing. I mean, he has this phrase. It says, "Don't think, just do." Now, obviously, I'm not advocating going and just not doing like shady behaviour or like obnoxious stuff or anything risky, but there is a lot in what he says. It's like, if you can get ahead and be like, if you've got a statement that you can just tell your brain, "Don't think, just do." It's kind of like that motivation that you need to take the first step.
Yeah, just take that first tiny step.
The first tiny step, because it's like that. If you can get ahead of the, I don't want to do it, it's too much, I don't know if I can cut a tile, etc. You're just getting into the flow, and your brain is like, okay, I guess we're doing this, and we kind of get into it, and you are in that sort of the best state, the flow state of your brain almost, where you can figure things out. And you are tapping into that wonderful ability your brain has to propel you forward.
And I think, sometimes it's, you're just procrastinating because you don't like the task. If it's something you're afraid of, I know it sounds weird to be afraid of tiling, but afraid of messing it up. One of the approaches I also did was I did it in stages. So then I cut a few tiles and put them up. And I honestly thought, I'm going to see if they're still up on the wall tomorrow. I'm not going to do the whole thing and wait for it to go wrong. And then I went back, I honestly was pleasantly surprised. They're still up, they still look good. So I also broke that down and said, okay, I'm not going to do it all at once because I'm worried about the results. So I think sometimes a bit of procrastination is also a bit of risk management. And it doesn't mean that you just like run through the fire. Also recognize, okay, is my brain trying to manage a risk? And then go, okay, what is the risk? I had it with a client recently where they were avoiding spending time with one of their teams. And when we went through the risk, they said the risk they were worried about was that their team was going to judge them negatively. But actually them avoiding the team was making them judge them negatively. So it was kind of circular.
It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
But it was really interesting because I said, okay, you're stressed about this, so let's figure out what is the lion at the entrance to the cave. Let's get very clear on what the thing is that you're actually afraid of. And then let's take some action that mitigates for that.
Beautiful.
So if your procrastination is around fear, just really ask yourself, okay, what am I trying to avoid here? What am I worried about? Is that something I can mitigate for? Or just maybe even just recognizing that fear will help you move forward.
That's amazing. I really love that in terms of just like identifying what can we, because again, brain wants to be safe. So if we can make our brain feel safer and happier, we're more likely to do it, do the task, and then we can that's demonstrating our brain that we can do it, and we're more likely to find a smoother path to our actions next time.
And this is why I tiled my own bathroom.
I love it. What a win.
What a win. And it looks great. It turned out well. I think that's a fantastic place to end. So for those of you listening, if you are procrastinating, take that first teeny tiny step. Make it so small that it's almost imperceptible, and you'll get the ball rolling.
And please do share your wins with us. We love to hear your wins. And similarly, if you have anyone that you think would benefit from hearing about this little episode on procrastination, please do share it with them. And we'll see you next time.